In the year 2087, humanity's routine deep space monitoring caught a signal that defied all known natural phenomena. Dr. Eliza Chen was sketching her daughter's face from memory when the military escort pounded on her apartment door at 3:17 a.m. "Ma'am, you need to come with us now." The young lieutenant's face betrayed the gravity beneath his professional demeanor. 40 minutes later, her autonomous transport pierced the clouds above the United Earth Council headquarters in Geneva. Through the window, she saw what the rest of the world would learn about in exactly 8 hours. Massive vessels hovering in perfect geometric formation, their hulls adorned with flowing mathematical patterns that seemed to shift when not directly observed. "They're requesting a linguist," Director Hammond explained as they hurried through security. Their message specifically mentioned pattern-associative communication protocols. "Your dissertation." Eliza's heart raced. Her controversial theory about universal communication patterns had been dismissed by colleagues as intuitive leaps unsupported by data. Yet here was its validation in the most dramatic form imaginable. The hastily assembled First Contact Team, 14 specialists representing Earth's scientific, political, and military interests, boarded the shuttle that would take them to the alien flagship. Captain Marcus Rivera, his face bearing the distinctive scarring of military-grade radiation burns from the water wars, nodded to her as she took her seat. "Ready to make history, Doctor." His calm belied the sidearm hidden beneath his formal jacket. "Ready to rewrite my CV at the very least," she replied, her hands instinctively finding her worn sketchpad. A paper one, a quirk her colleagues found amusingly archaic. The shuttle journey lasted 17 minutes. 17 minutes during which humanity's representatives sat in silence, punctuated only by the occasional whispered prayer or nervous laugh. Through the viewport, Eliza watched Earth recede, her home, her daughter Maya sleeping in her grandmother's apartment. Everything humanity had ever known shrinking to a blue marble. The alien vessel swallowed their shuttle with unsettling grace. No docking mechanisms, no visible hatches. The hull simply permitted them entry, like a membrane accepting a cell. Inside, the air carried a subtle scent of ozone and something else, like cinnamon but sharper. The gravity felt precisely calibrated to Earth normal, a courtesy that somehow made Eliza more uneasy rather than less. They were greeted by representatives of the Galactic Concord, 17 species that, they learned, had been covertly studying Earth for centuries. The aliens towered over the human delegation in gleaming exosuits that pulsed with light as they spoke, their translators rendering their words into flawless, accentless English. Their technology was centuries beyond Earth's understanding. Holographic interfaces that predicted commands before they were given. Gravity manipulation as casual as humans used electricity, materials that responded to thought rather than touch. "We have observed your development with great interest," explained the being who introduced itself as Thalvek, a towering crystalline entity whose internal structures refracted light in hypnotic patterns. "Your species has achieved spaceflight remarkably quickly relative to your biological emergence." The formal introduction ceremony proceeded according to protocols the aliens had extracted from human diplomatic records. Eliza found herself nervously sketching on her notepad as she listened. A simple rendition of Maya's face, her daughter's smile a comfort in this overwhelming moment. Midway through the Concord ambassador's speech about mutually beneficial cultural exchange, Thalvek suddenly stopped, its crystalline form shifting color from cool blue to vibrant purple. It approached Eliza directly, multifaceted eyes fixed on her notepad. "May I?" it asked, extending an appendage that seemed to materialize from its body. Confused, Eliza handed over her simple pencil sketch. The reaction was immediate and bewildering. The entire alien delegation fell into reverent silence as the drawing was passed from member to member with trembling appendages. They handled it as if it were a priceless artifact, not the nervous doodling of a scientist out of her depth. Eliza watched in confusion as several aliens exhibited physical reactions. Color changes, light fluctuations, vibrational resonances that their translators identified as profound emotional responses. "How?" Thalvek finally asked, voice quivering through the translator. Does your kind create something from nothing with such abandon? 3 days after first contact, the early morning sun cast long shadows across the Sahara Desert, where the Concorde had deployed their massive scanning array. The structure resembled a field of metallic lotus flowers, each 20 meters wide, unfurled toward the sky in perfect geometric patterns. Eliza shielded her eyes against the glare, watching Captain Rivera pace the perimeter. The burn scars across his face appeared more pronounced in the harsh light, a permanent reminder of what humanity had endured during the water wars. They're lying about something, he muttered, coming to stand beside her. Have you noticed how their left appendages twitch slightly before their translators activate? Microtells. You're paranoid, Eliza replied, though she'd noticed other inconsistencies herself. The way certain subjects caused their light patterns to dim momentarily, how they seemed almost desperate when discussing human art. Paranoia kept me alive in Nigeria, Rivera countered. These beings crossed galaxies. They didn't come for trade agreements. The mithril chief examiner approached them, its ancient form moving with liquid grace despite appearing to be constructed from interlocking geometric plates. The Concorde had explained that all newly discovered species undergo an assessment before galactic integration, a comprehensive analysis of technological development, social cohesion, and what they call the creation coefficient. We are prepared to begin, the examiner announced, its voice like wind through crystal. Please gather your delegation. The scan itself was anticlimactic. No sensation, no visible energy, just the alien machines pulsing in synchronized rhythms. Eliza found herself unconsciously sketching the pattern in her notebook, adding subtle variations that pleased her aesthetic sense. As the scan completed, the air filled with sudden tension. The lead mithril examiner, belonging to a species so ancient they claimed to have witnessed the birth of Earth's sun, dropped the crystalline data sphere they were holding. It shattered on impact, releasing a shower of light particles that danced through the air like sentient fireflies. Impossible, the examiner whispered, mandibles clicking rapidly. Run it again. 3 more scans yielded identical results. Each time, the aliens' reactions grew more agitated, communication between them becoming rapid and untranslated, their bodies exhibiting signs Eliza interpreted as shock. Finally, the chief examiner approached the human delegation, its form flickering between colors. Humans possess a creation coefficient exceeding any recorded species in Concorde history, it announced. Higher than civilizations with million-year head starts on your evolutionary timeline. The implications hung in the air like the desert heat. Earth's representatives exchanged glances ranging from pride to disbelief. What exactly does that mean for Earth? Asked the UEC president. It changes everything, the examiner replied. Within hours, the mithril ship transmitted the data across the galaxy, causing 5 more massive vessels to appear in Earth orbit, each filled with their most respected scholars. That night, unable to sleep, Rivera bypassed security protocols programmed by people far less paranoid than himself. He infiltrated the aliens' temporary compound established near the scanning site, moving silently through sections marked as restricted to human access. In a chamber pulsing with holographic displays, he witnessed something disturbing. Concorde scientists interfacing with machines that showed thousands of human brain scans, artistic creations, and innovation patterns being obsessively analyzed. The neural pathways shouldn't be possible, one alien was saying to another. The quantum efficiency of their creative processes exceeds theoretical maximums. When a door hissed open behind him, Rivera found himself face to face with a senior Keldrai scientist, its insectoid form regarding him with compound eyes that reflected his own image back at him in fractured multiplication. You don't understand what you have, it hissed through its translator, making no move to sound an alarm. What you waste daily, we haven't experienced in 50,000 years. Explain, Rivera demanded, hand hovering near his concealed weapon. Your kind creates without calculation, without certainty of outcome. The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been envy. Do you know how many of our worlds would trade their technology for just one day of such freedom? Rain lashed against the windows of the abandoned observatory on Mount Wilson. Once the pinnacle of human astronomical achievement, now it served as nothing more than a historical curiosity in an age of orbital telescopes. Tonight, however, it served another purpose, a meeting place beyond the watchful sensors of both human security and Concord observers. Eliza checked her encrypted communicator again. The message had been specific. Come alone, disable all tracking devices, tell no one. The mysterious sender claimed to have crucial information about the Concord's true interest in humanity. Lightning illuminated the dome, and suddenly she wasn't alone. The figure stood motionless by the ancient telescope, an alien in an exosuit, stripped of all official Concord markings and identifiers. A serious crime in their culture, Eliza knew. Dr. Chen, the alien's voice came through a translator that lacked the polished perfection of official Concord devices. I am Vexilor, Sinobiological Research Division. Eliza remained near the door. You're taking an enormous risk contacting me. Yes. Termination would be assured if discovered. Lightning flashed again, illuminating Vexilor's true form beneath the transparent helmet, a being composed of shifting smoke-like particles that formed and reformed facial features that almost, but not quite, mimicked human expressions. Why? Eliza asked simply. Because the Council obscures the truth. About us. About you. Vexilor approached, movements uncharacteristically hesitant for a Concord member. You deserve to know what we are, what we have become. The alien activated a holographic projector embedded in its exosuit. The air between them filled with streams of data, historical records, and genetic mappings of dozens of species. All Concord species have hit evolutionary dead ends, Vexilor explained. Technological plateaus where advancement continues but innovation ceases. Through a series of clandestine data transfers and forbidden historical archives, the truth unfolded before Eliza. The Concord civilizations could refine existing technologies to perfection, but had lost the ability to conceptualize truly novel ideas. Their art, while technically flawless, evoked nothing. Their music followed precise mathematical formulas, but touched no one. Their literature recycled the same structural templates they used for millennia. This cannot be widely known, she whispered, understanding the implications. It is our greatest shame, Vexilor confirmed, particles swirling in agitation. Watch. The alien connected to Eliza's tablet where she stored her daughter's finger paintings. As the childish art displayed, Vexilor's body convulsed, particles swirling in chaotic patterns. This crude image contains more creative energy than the combined output of our last 5 centuries, Vexilor said. We can clone worlds, engineer stars, but we cannot make this. Most alarming, Vexilor revealed that the creative deterioration was accelerating exponentially across all Concord species. Advanced predictive models suggested a future of perfect, unchanging stagnation. Technological development would continue along predetermined pathways, but without the spark of genuine innovation. But why tell me this? Eliza asked, struggling to process the revelation. Why not speak to our leaders? Because not all Concord factions see humans as partners. Vexilor's form briefly coalesced into something resembling the human face twisted with concern. Some see you as resources. Outside, thunder cracked violently, rattling the observatory dome. The Keld Ray. Eliza guessed, remembering Rivera's warnings. And others, Vexilor confirmed. They believe your neural patterns can be harvested, replicated, used to restore our lost capabilities. And you disagree? I believe creativity cannot be extracted. Vexilor's particles briefly formed into what Eliza recognized as a perfect teardrop shape. It must be kindled. Dawn was approaching, pink light beginning to penetrate the storm clouds. Why help me? Eliza asked, gathering her belongings. Because, Vexlor answered, particles briefly coalescing into a humanoid face with an expression of longing. I was once my species' last artist. I want to feel inspiration again before I die. As they parted, Vexlor pressed a data crystal into her hand. Evidence. For when you need it. The alien paused. The Concord needs humanity, Dr. Chen. More than you could possibly understand. The spires of Nexus Prime stretched impossibly high into an emerald sky, architectural structures that seemed to defy not just Earth's physics, but the very concept of structural limitation. Looking up made Eliza dizzy, not from vertigo, but from the mathematical perfection that somehow felt hollow despite its grandeur. Like everything was designed by the same mind, Rivera muttered beside her, voicing her unspoken thought as the first human delegation disembarked onto the Concord capital world. Over 300 humans, artists, musicians, chefs, architects, poets, and inventors, had been brought to participate in what the Concord called the Awakening Exhibition. Officially, Eliza served as cultural liaison. Unofficially, she and Rivera were now conspirators, sharing Vexlor's warnings and watching for signs of the Keldray faction's true intentions. Remember, she whispered to the nervous Earth delegates, they aren't just studying our work, they're studying how we create it. The process matters as much as the result. The exhibition center was a vast crystalline dome, where the interior dimensions seemed impossibly larger than the exterior, a spatial paradox that several human physicists were already frantically documenting. Billions of aliens from across the galaxy attended either in person or through neural projection, their diverse physiologies representing evolutionary paths humanity had never imagined. As the human demonstrations began, Eliza noted the aliens' reactions. A chef combining sweet and umami flavors in ways the mathematically perfect Concord cuisine never considered caused a ripple of what translated as revelatory shock among the food scientists. Architects sketching buildings that prioritized emotional experience over optimal function, through crowds of fascinated engineers whose appendages trembled as they touched the simple paper drawings. Rivera had positioned himself near a group of Keldray observers, his enhanced hearing implants, supposedly for battlefield communications, picking up fragments of their untranslated conversations. Neural mapping, optimal extraction points, necessary sacrifices. His eyes met Eliza's across the hall. A subtle nod confirmed her fears. The exhibition reached its emotional peak when 12-year-old Zoe Williams, a refugee orphan from the climate wars with no formal training, approached the ancient mithril harmonic resonator. The instrument, a complex arrangement of crystalline structures that responded to both touch and thought, typically required decades to master. "May I try?" she asked the mithril High Elder, a being rumored to be 15,000 years old. The elder reluctantly permitted it, mandibles clicking in what the translators rendered as indulgent amusement. The audience fell silent, expecting nothing. Zoe touched the instrument tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. What emerged was not the mathematically complex harmonies the instrument was designed for, but a simple, haunting melody, something the girl had composed herself during the lonely nights in refugee camps. The exhibition hall fell into absolute silence. The sound built, echoing off crystal walls, carrying emotions that transcended species barriers. Across the vast chamber, alien physiologies responded. Bioluminescent species pulsed with forgotten patterns, crystalline beings vibrated at frequencies they thought lost of evolution, atmospheric entities condensed into visible forms. The mithril High Elder, with trembling appendages, reached up to touch its facial structure where a glistening droplet had formed, experiencing tears for the first time in millennia. While the audience remained transfixed, Rivera used tech provided by Vexlor to intercept encrypted Keldray communications. What he discovered sent ice through his veins. Detailed plans, already approved by their High Council, to quarantine Earth and systematically extract human brain patterns to create creativity engines, biological computers powered by human neural networks. The process would be fatal to the donors. As the final notes faded and the exhibition hall erupted in alien approximations of applause, Rivera rushed to Eliza's side, discreetly transferring the intercepted data. "It's worse than we thought," he whispered. "They're not planning to ask permission." On stage, little Zoe bowed, unaware that her simple melody had both awakened a galactic renaissance and possibly doomed humanity. Behind her, the Keld-Ray delegation watched with compound eyes that reflected nothing but cold calculation. The Concord Central Council chamber was a perfect sphere, its interior a masterpiece of alien engineering. Gravity shifted direction depending on which species held the floor, allowing each delegate to stand perpendicular to their own section while appearing upright to all others. A physical manifestation of the Concord's founding principle that no species perspective should dominate. Today, that principle faced its greatest test. Eliza stood with the small human delegation, granted observer status but not voting rights. The evidence Rivera had intercepted had been formally presented to the Council by Vexilor, triggering an emergency session that would determine humanity's fate. The Keld-Ray delegation, 20 identical insectoid beings with metallic exoskeletons and compound eyes that reflected light in fractal patterns, showed no reaction to having their plans exposed. Their speaker simply waited for recognition, then rose to address the council with cold precision. "The mathematics is irrefutable." The speaker clicked through a translator. Behind it, holographic displays materialized, showing detailed neural diagrams of human brains compared to various alien equivalents. Humanity's unique neural patterns can be harvested and integrated into synthetic matrices, creativity engines that would reverse our collective decline. One human processing center could supply creativity algorithms for an entire sector. The chamber fell silent at the proposal's implications. The displays shifted to show industrial-scale facilities where millions of humans would be processed, their neural patterns extracted in a procedure with 100% mortality. Each processing cycle would require approximately 10 million human subjects. The Keld-Ray speaker continued clinically. Earth's population could sustain our needs for approximately 8 decades with proper breeding protocols. Several council members visibly recoiled, but the Keld-Ray pressed on, their logic relentless. They are primitive, violent, and self-destructive. The speaker continued as footage of Earth's wars played behind them. We would preserve their greatest gift while sparing them their inevitable self-annihilation. When the Keld-Ray finished, the gravity shifted, reorienting to Eliza's position. She was granted speaking rights as Earth's representative and stepped forward, suddenly feeling as if she were standing on a wall rather than a floor. Eliza had prepared careful arguments, diplomatic appeals, and logical counters, but facing the cold calculation that reduced her species to a resource, she abandoned her notes. Instead, she spoke from the heart, telling stories of human creativity born from struggle, the beauty that emerges from imperfection, how innovation requires freedom and cannot be harvested. "The child whose music moved you to tears yesterday," she said, her voice echoing in the chamber, discovered that melody while hiding from bombs in a refugee camp. Our creativity doesn't exist despite our imperfections. It exists because of them. She pulled out her daughter's drawing, the one that had so fascinated the Concorde at first contact. "My daughter drew this after her father died. She was trying to remember his face. This isn't just graphite on paper. It's love and loss and memory. Things that cannot be extracted or replicated. They must be experienced." The council voted, their decision registered as pulses of light that coalesced in the chamber center. By the narrowest margin in Concorde history, 8 species to 7, with 2 abstentions, they rejected the Keld-Ray proposal. That night, while the human delegation celebrated this apparent victory, Rivera's security implants detected massive energy signatures leaving Keld-Ray space. When Vexilor arrived at their quarters, its particle form agitated to near instability. They knew immediately. "They're mobilizing their fleet," Vexilor confirmed, projecting tactical data. The Keldray never intended to respect the vote. Their battle group will reach Earth in 7 days, bearing technology capable of neutralizing all human defenses. As they rushed to the human transport vessel, the corridor ahead suddenly darkened. 3 Keldray assassins materialized from what appeared to be solid walls, weapons trained on them. "The human species thanks you for your sacrifice," one clicked mockingly. Eliza watched in horror as Vexilor lunged forward, taking a blast meant for her. The alien's particle body dispersed partially upon impact, a cloud of glittering motes swirling in agony. Rivera returned fire, creating enough confusion for them to escape, but Vexilor's form was critically destabilized, particles struggling to maintain cohesion. "We must warn Earth," Vexilor whispered as they fled toward the docking bay. "There is still time to prepare." Earth erupted into controlled chaos as the truth spread. Hostile aliens would arrive in less than a week. Military leaders quickly concluded what Eliza and Rivera already knew. Conventional defenses would be futile against technology centuries beyond human capabilities. In an unprecedented move, the United Earth Council broadcast a global call for unconventional solutions from anyone, anywhere. The message was simple: humanity needed ideas that no alien could anticipate. Dr. Prisha Sharma watched the emergency broadcast from her cramped apartment in Bangalore. Once a respected quantum physicist, her career had imploded after publishing theories combining quantum mechanics with artistic principles. "Science is not poetry," her critics had sneered. Now her comm unit wouldn't stop chiming with urgent messages from the same institutions that had mocked her. 72 hours later, she stood before a hastily assembled war council, her arms and clothing covered in equations scrawled during 3 sleepless days and nights. "Their systems are perfectly logical," she explained, projecting chaotic patterns that seemed meaningless until she highlighted their underlying connections. "So we must be perfectly illogical." Her radical proposal: repurpose Earth's global communication network into what she called a conceptual defense grid, using quantum principles that operated outside conventional physics, specifically utilizing uncertainty and observer effects at a massive scale. "They predict our responses using perfect logic," she explained. "But what if our defense responds differently based on who's observing it? What if it exists in multiple states simultaneously?" The plan required rewriting communication protocols worldwide within days, an impossible task under normal bureaucracy. But with extinction looming, impossible tasks became merely difficult ones. What followed was an unprecedented collaboration. In Seoul, a collective of K-pop choreographers worked alongside quantum physicists to design drone flight patterns specifically created to confuse Keldray optical processing. In Lagos, traditional drummers collaborated with signal engineers to create jamming frequencies that exploited gaps in alien communication spectrums. A 13-year-old from Tasmania suggested using internet meme structures as the basis for military countermeasures, which testing revealed were mathematically unpredictable to Keldray systems. Rivera, using his military connections, coordinated global defense preparations, while Eliza and a weakening Vexilor provided crucial insights into Keldray weaknesses. Their prediction models assumed causality. Vexilor explained, particles struggling to maintain coherence. Show them patterns that suggest false causal relationships, then exploit their incorrect predictions. Artists designed camouflage that didn't hide objects but instead created visual illusions that Keldray perceptual systems couldn't process. Composers created sonic weapons that used emotional resonance patterns the aliens couldn't comprehend. Storytellers crafted deception strategies based on narrative structures so inherently human that alien logic couldn't anticipate the plot twists. When the Keldray fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, they deployed an electromagnetic pulse designed to disable Earth's primitive defenses. Instead, it encountered Sharma's conceptual grid, a system operating on principles so fundamentally contrary to Keldray logic that their attacks strengthened rather than weakened it. The human counterattack launched immediately, employing strategies varying from mathematical poetry, converted to targeting algorithms to combat drones programmed with jazz improvisation patterns. Earth's remaining orbital platforms didn't try to hide from superior Keldray sensors. Instead, they'd broadcast contradictory information, creating phantom targets and false vulnerabilities that shifted based on which enemy ship was observing them. Aboard the Keldray command ship, the Central Eye, accustomed to perfect prediction models, began experiencing the alien equivalent of confusion. Its targeting computers, faced with human defenses that simultaneously made no sense yet followed their own internal logic, started seeing patterns where none existed and missing obvious solutions. Impossible, the Keldray commander chittered as another attack wing fell into a human trap that their simulations had shown was statistically impossible. They cannot be anticipating our responses. They aren't, his tactical officer replied, compound eyes reflecting the chaotic battle displays. They're improvising. As Earth's makeshift defense held against all predictions, the Keldray commander faced something their species hadn't encountered in 10,000 years. Genuine uncertainty about the outcome of a conflict they had calculated as an assured victory. The battle entered its third day. Earth's creative defenses, while brilliant, began to falter as the Keldray adapted. Their logical systems, initially confounded by human unpredictability, were developing new algorithms that incorporated randomness into their predictions. Dr. Sharma worked frantically in what had once been a university basement, now a makeshift command center filled with artists, scientists, and hackers. Screens displayed the deteriorating defensive grid, satellite networks failing, ground stations going dark. "They're learning," she murmured, fingers flying across interfaces, not creating, but adapting. Without the manufacturing capacity to replace destroyed satellites and ground stations, the defensive grid weakened with each passing hour. Casualties mounted worldwide as Keldray precision strikes targeted key nodes in Sharma's conceptual defense network. In orbit, Rivera commanded Earth's last functional space platform, a hastily weaponized science station. His crew, a mix of military personnel and civilian researchers, watched as 3 Keldray destroyers approached their position. "Prepare for final maneuver," he ordered, plotting a suicidal ramming trajectory toward the Keldray command ship. If they couldn't win, they could at least take the enemy leadership with them. On the ground, Eliza monitored communications as Vexilor's particle body deteriorated further. The alien researcher was dying, their particles unable to maintain cohesion after the assassination attempt. "I always wondered," Vexilor whispered, particles dimming, "what it would be like to create something truly new before the end." With failing strength, Vexilor connected to Earth's defensive grid and did something unprecedented, merged their consciousness with it, introducing alien thought patterns into Sharma's human design system. "What are you doing?" Eliza asked, watching in astonishment as the displays showed unexpected new patterns forming throughout the network. "Neither human nor Concord," Vexilor struggled to explain. "Something new." The resulting hybrid logic created defensive patterns that neither humans nor Keldray could predict, a true innovation born from the fusion of 2 fundamentally different minds. In orbit, Rivera had just given the final order to his crew to evacuate when his tactical officer shouted in disbelief. The fabric of space itself seemed to tear open, massive rifts appearing throughout the solar system. His first thought was that the Keldray had deployed some final devastating weapon. Then the Mithril flagship emerged, a vessel the size of a small moon, followed by the combined might of 12 Concord species. The galaxy had voted again, this time with ships instead of light pulses. The Mithril High Elder's voice echoed across all communication channels. "We were wrong in our understanding. Creativity cannot be harvested, it must be kindled." The Keldray, outmatched and outmaneuvered, attempted to retreat under the combined assault of human unpredictability and overwhelming Concord firepower. Their command ship, target of Rivera's suicide run, found itself trapped between the human vessel and the mithril flagship's gravitational weapons. As the battle ended, something unprecedented occurred. The Mithril High Elder, a being who remembered the time before humans had written language, requested permission to land on Earth. In a ceremony hastily arranged in the ruins of Geneva, the ancient being knelt before the assembled human leaders. For 10 million years, we have traveled the stars believing we were the pinnacle of evolution, the Elder intoned, its crystalline form refracting sunlight in hypnotic patterns. Today, we learn that we have been collectively missing what your youngest children inherently possess. In the aftermath, the Concord proposed a new form of alliance, a creative symbiosis. Humans would help reawaken innovation across thousands of worlds while gaining protection and technological advancement in return. Creativity academies would be established throughout the galaxy, cultural exchange centers where humans would teach aliens to think differently, while aliens would teach humans their advanced sciences. As medical ships arrived to assist Earth's wounded, Eliza rushed Vexilor's fading form to alien physicians, the last thing the alien researcher said before losing consciousness. For the first time in 5,000 years, I don't know what happens next. Isn't that wonderful? 5 years later, Nexus Prime had transformed beyond recognition. Once a world of perfect, sterile symmetry, its skyline now featured architectural impossibilities. Buildings that seemed to defy physics yet stood stronger than before, their designs born from human-alien collaboration. The central spire, once a monument to mathematical perfection, now spiraled in organic, asymmetrical patterns that changed subtly depending on the observer's position and emotional state. Gardens grew not in orderly arrangements, but in seemingly chaotic ecosystems that nevertheless achieved perfect balance. Eliza, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Concord, stood on a floating platform overlooking the first Interspecies Creativity Academy's graduation ceremony. Below her, thousands of beings from across the galaxy mingled in a chaos of color, sound, and movement that would have been unthinkable half a decade ago. Still getting used to the view? Rivera asked, joining her at the railing. The former military man now headed security for all human diplomatic missions, the burn scars on his face partially healed by Concord medical technology. I'm not sure I ever will, she admitted. But that's rather the point, isn't it? Her daughter Maya, whose childhood drawing had once stunned the Concord delegation, led a mixed ensemble on the central stage. At 17, she had become a pioneer in what the galaxy now called fusion expression, an art form that combined human music with mithril harmonic physics and Vexilor's species particle dance. The audience experienced it not just through sound, but as colors, textures, and emotional resonances that transcended biological differences. Species that communicated through chemical signals interpreted the performance through scent, while crystalline beings resonated with harmonics humans couldn't perceive. The most surprising attendees were the Keldrai. After their defeat, many expected the logical insectoids to retreat into isolation. Instead, after initial resistance, they became some of the most dedicated students of human creativity. Their rigid society discovered that emotional expression enhanced rather than weakened their collective function. A Keldrai representative approached Eliza after the ceremony, its formerly monochrome exoskeleton now adorned with iridescent patterns that represented mathematical theorems inspired by human poetry. We calculated incorrectly, the being admitted, compound eyes reflecting the celebration below. We sought to harvest what must be cultivated. The mathematical elegance of this error is beautiful. The word beautiful came through the translator with a reverence that suggested it was newly added to their lexicon. Vexilor, saved by a combination of human medical intuition and alien technology, now existed as something unprecedented, a hybrid consciousness partially merged with synthetic systems. They approached, their particle body now stable and capable of forming expressions recognizable to humans. Look, Vexilor said, directing Eliza's attention to a sprawling galaxy-wide data visualization. It showed the Concord's collective creation coefficient, once in terminal decline, now rising exponentially as human creative principles spread across thousands of worlds. The Renaissance is just beginning, Vexlor observed. We've identified 17 new art forms that have emerged in the past year alone, none of which could have existed without human-alien collaboration. The ceremony culminated as Maya activated a massive collaborative installation at the Academy Center. It was a structure impossible to fully perceive from any single angle, combining human imagination with alien precision, earthborn emotion with extraterrestrial logic. As it activated, it broadcast a sensory experience across the galaxy that each species perceived uniquely yet shared collectively. The ancient mithril High Elder, now a student of Maya's despite being older than human civilization, joined Eliza on the observation platform. Together they watched as the installation transformed, representing the endless possibilities of combined perspectives. In all our millions of years traversing the stars, the Elder said with newly learned human-style wonder in their voice, we never realized that the rarest resource in the universe wasn't some exotic element or energy source. It was something found in abundance on a small blue world, the ability to create what has never existed before. As night fell on Nexus Prime, the installation projected a representation of the galaxy, countless worlds illuminated not by their stars, but by the creative spark now spreading from Earth outward, a new form of energy transforming everything it touches. What happens next? The Elder asked Eliza, using the human phrase that had become a favorite across the Concord. She smiled, watching her daughter take a bow as the galaxy applauded. I have no idea. Isn't that wonderful?